Okay, so let's start with is asset excluded. If you can look that up in the PDF, we'll pull it over.
Mm-hmm.
And reason for exclusion. I need to identify what those were again.
So, I mean, quite honestly, if we grab this document, we could probably read through it and read through some of the conditions, right?
Absolutely. So let's there's only one or two that I really kind of want to talk to in this, like at this level, because there's only one or two I don't actually know what they are. This one we did like almost 2 years ago now. Okay. So this is definitely something that's going to be a manual decision at Sydney's level. I guarantee this is not going to be in Tririga already. So is asset excluded and reason for exclusion are probably things we just need to add to the FRPP page.
Yep.
The next
so
one,
actually,
field office.
some of these things, I believe, we already have them. They were part of the federal reporting that was in Tririga. We could take a look at those, but for sure, the number of employees, federal employees, contractors, that's already part of Tririga. But what I noticed on yours was it's more of a question rather than a number.
Okay, so hold on. If that's in there also.
Oh.
If you're looking at can the number of federal employees be determined, that is a new field that's in there, even though there is also a field for number of federal employees. So this is something, I don't know if this was a DHS or FRPP thing where they just said, well, you know, you're giving us the number, but tell us if it's a real number, so we're going to put this in here for a yes, no. If you scroll to the left here, you'll see the actual number of federal employees, which you're already gathering. We're already doing that for the number there. Yeah. So there's our federal employees. There's federal employees teleworking. There's contractors right there in BGBH and BI. So we already have the numbers, and those are coming out of Tririga. But okay. FRPP and RPDW have decided in their infinite wisdom that we also need to tell them yes or no if we can determine it.
Okay.
So those are probably going to end up being yes/no fields again in the FRPP. All of this, I mean, yeah, the definitions are in the RPDW with the exception of the last couple, which we'll talk about. So by all means, look at that. Look at what Tririga has already put in there for the federal stuff. If it's in there, great. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to lean on you to make decisions like that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I see them. I see them. So that's the other thing, right? So some of these fields came out of the box and they applied to a building. But when we revamped it, we decided that those fields should belong to the RPUID rather than to the building. So right. To kind of, and I'm only saying all this stuff so Dave can kind of hear it. I know you guys know it, but we have the three forms. We have the RPUID, which is the general information that links to the actual building, structure, or land, and then there's an associated lease. So we have the three forms that make up the total report. So three different tables that make the compilation of the report. So again, that's for Dave's purposes, just so he knows. So in some cases, we will also need to determine which form the data will reside on, as we did in the past.
Right, agreed.
Okay.
All right, so this first set in yellow, most of those are going to be, again, all of those are in the RPDW data dictionary. If you have a copy of that, you can kind of review that and tell me what you think. Field office is a yes, no. It's not something unless it's in the federal stuff, it's not going to be in Tririga. It is something that FRPP requested, I think, so it might be in that federal stuff.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like something that was already there, but I'll confirm.
Yeah. Historical expenditure.
So I'm sorry, I need to take some notes as we do this, so I apologize. Where did it go? Sorry, I had to shut down my computer this morning, and I do not have that Excel file open. So I just want to capture, where is your email? I want to capture what type of field it is, and then I'll put a little note on there to see if it already exists in Tarika. Some of these will. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I'm slow.
Yeah, sorry. It's fine. Take your time.
Okay, so is asset excluded? That's a yes, no.
Correct.
Right. And do we want, if yes, expose reason for exclusion? If no, keep it hid?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. And then he said field office is yes, no. That doesn't control anything else?
Nope, it's not at this stage.
Okay. Now we're at historical capital expenditures.
That is, again, that is a manual entry that I got from Sydney, or Tyrone at the time, I think, actually.
Do you know where the where the data comes from, or?
This should be a direct relation to opportunities.
Huh.
So it's what money have we spent on this asset in terms of opportunities, capital projects.
So this could possibly be a total of all completed opportunities to date.
Yeah, I believe that's what we did to get these numbers in the first place, is I went through our old data. Again, that was 2 years ago. We haven't updated it because they haven't been updating their projects.
And then, so I have to imagine that we would have to build some sort of refresh to go out and get the opportunities, because every year those opportunities are going to change.
Correct. Every quarter that we do this, every time we do the report, basically,
yeah,
is when the number is really going to matter. Even if that's a manual process, okay, go press this button to run that process, right, and then come over and run the report, it's fine.
So the historical capital expenditures, they wouldn't come from anywhere else, you don't think, just opportunities. And the other thing I was kind of curious, you know, since nobody's really using opportunities, we're going to have to obviously train these people to complete them, right?
Oh yeah, that's you know, as we get into this with Sydney, he's going to be pushing these people in the field to start doing this stuff.
Okay, all right. I just, you know, like I said, I haven't talked to you guys in a long time, and I'm always questioning everything, so forgive me.
It's okay. I don't blame you. But it's better you say it than not say it at all.
Right. Okay, so then I'm going to assume estimated future capital expenditures are any existing opportunities that have not been completed.
Yeah, so historical here, you can see it's the total cost of capital expenditures incurred by federal government associated with this property. Capital expenditures are defined as, et cetera, et cetera. Scroll down because I think, yeah, estimated future should be anything left that's, I don't know that we would do it in a draft. We'd probably pick a specific status level, and it's probably the same ones that would hit our FCI. But we can lock that down a little bit too. But this is something that should come out of the DMNR.
And it does say 5 years, so this is specific to a timing, not just anything future, but 5-year related.
Correct.
Okay. And obviously, if we build a refresh for the historical, we'd want to run that to also capture this. So I'll keep that in mind as well.
Right, great. Cannot currently be disposed of date, if you're ready for it.
That, I believe, is already in Tririga, which should just be yes, no, I thought.
Well, there is a cannot currently be disposed, yes, no, in the fields already.
Okay.
So they have said when that is yes, we need a date.
Oh, okay, I got you.
That would just be assigning a date to that, relationship.
Yep. If you scroll to the left, you should be able to find cannot currently.
I've seen it, yeah.
I thought we had that date though, but I'll double check.
Cannot currently be disposed reasons right there. Scroll a little bit further left.
Yeah.
The date's in here somewhere further to the left, so they keep adding to that one.
Oh, okay.
There should be a cannot currently be disposed yes no flag in here somewhere, I think. It would probably be right in there. It's
Method.
I'd have to look again to see if that date was actually there. We have the yeah. So let's not waste too much time on it. That is something that again is just it's a date field. It's going to be related to the other cannot currently be disposed fields, which are already on the FRPP record.
Yep.
All right,
so I forgot to ask. Sorry. So on can we go back to CP? I'm sorry. Is asset excluded? Do we believe that should be on the RPUID, FRPP record, or the structure, building land?
Let me look a little bit more closely at the legislation behind that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's the asset itself, the building is excluded, so all leases are also excluded, or if that's directly on the lease. I think it's specific to the lease if there are leases.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's going to be in the FRPP record, but I'll double check.
Okay. And then the reason for exclusion, I believe that's on RPUID or FRPP. I'm using those synonymously, so.
That would be wherever is asset excluded exists is where reason for exclusion exists.
Yeah.
They're directly related.
Then field office, yes, no. Sounds to me that should be, I don't know.
Office, I believe it's office buildings only. And they're just asking, is it a field office, or is it, it's very related actually to the headquarters flag. But it's a different question, very, very similar. And all of this is rolling up into DHS's data so that they can determine where we are actually, where our people are located.
Okay. All right. Historical capital expenditures, I believe that's being captured on the RPUID, so, or FRPP.
Correct. That is correct.
Then the next one, same thing. Cannot currently be disposed of date, so we'll find the form.
That would also be on the FRPP record.
Okay, so we're back to where we were before I went backwards. I'm sorry. Lease start.
Lease start, obviously, guarantee is on the lease record somewhere. We just have to figure out which one which of those fields, because there's a million of them.
Yep.
Which of those fields we're using, and just make sure we start filling it in.
Yep. Okay.
Year asset reported underutilized. If I'm not mistaken, it's just a year. And I don't think we have any of them right now, I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so either. Are we thinking FRPP on this one?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
He's trying to find it in the, you're way past it.
13.
You know, you can hold shift.
Yeah, on a PDF, I guess.
All right, give him a second here.
There it is.
There's utilization, year asset reported underutilized is right underneath utilization. It's a 4-digit year. So there's not a whole lot to that. It's just going to be a year. We might be able to tie it into the actual utilization percentage, but you then have to have your choice of the different use types and what determines underutilized.
Right. So it seems like it's more than asset designation. So it actually has to have a date, though. Do you see that?
It's a 4-digit year. What they're doing is they're automatically adding September 30th to it and subtracting it from today's date to determine the number of days an asset is underutilized. Because that's a different field. They're trying to track how many days it's been sitting there not being used.
So do we need to add this too?
No, we just need a 4-digit year.
Okay.
And DHS is doing the rest, I guess? Or
And DHS is actually calculating the rest of it, or FRPP is. Now you're in the FRPP data dictionary. We should actually be looking at the RPW data dictionary too, because that could actually, they might be wanting the full date. Probably not, but it's possible.
I'll pull it up.
All right, and then the CAN number of federal employees and contractors be determined. That's yes, no, and each.
I'm sorry, did we identify what form that was supposed to be on? I'm sorry.
Which one?
The underutilized, year asset reported underutilized.
That would be in the FRPP record.
Okay. All right, moving on. Sorry about that.
That's where all of our utilization information exists.
Okay.
So this next section here, he's still looking up the year asset reported underutilized in the RPDW to make sure it matches the FRPP definition. But the next section here, which is all of these light blue, gray, whatever color that is, those are part of this new 5-year plan thing where RPDW is trying to merge the 5-year plan data into the RPDW so we have less total reports to give. But it definitely makes the RPDW harder to get out the door. So what this is, it's all defined in the RPDW data dictionary, and I think it's easier if we kind of went through the data dictionary for these fields. But basically they're asking for, there's a set for transaction 1 and a set of columns for transaction 2. And you can see there where transaction 2 starts in DH, column DH. So there are what, 5, 8, however many that is, 8 fields for each transaction. So the transaction fiscal year, the transaction, there's a transaction code, square footage impact, justification code. So all of these things are coming straight out of the RPW data dictionary. And this is where, when Sydney said he wants to talk first and talk about the whole 5-year plan stuff, he's talking partially about this, but he has other things he'd like to capture. So we need to talk about these fields in terms of what Sydney also wants to capture for 5-year plan stuff.
Okay.
He may have, I think he has additional fields he wants to capture when he's doing this. So this set of fields may get more complicated once we talk to Sydney.
Of course.
But at the very least, we're going to need these fields, and they're going to be related to an FRPP record. So there's an example of some of the fields filled in.
Most are blank.
Yeah, the vast majority of them, nothing's happening with.
Yeah.
These usually are only referenced or only used for leases, because leases are the ones that actually have transactions within the next 5 years kind of thing. Owned properties, unless you know you're going to get rid of it, you're not going to have a transaction. So the owned properties generally don't have anything listed. So those are actually going to be, as far as this conversation, they're pretty easy. It's just we need to look at the data and talk to Sydney about it. But the actual implementation of these fields, I have a feeling, is going to get complicated once we actually do talk to Sydney.
Okay.
Before we jump over there, did you find anything different about RPW?
No, it's reads similarly.
Still a 4-digit number?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, the year asset reported and utilized is a 4-digit number. We will manually put that in. I don't think we need to try to tie that into anything.
Okay.
All right, so this last set of fields, columns DO through D, these are brand new, literally this quarter, this past quarter. And we're actually still trying to get this data from Sydney, Christine, and Tony right now. So field office co-location is a yes/no flag on the FRPP record. And I believe it's any office building.
Say that, the last part, you believe it's in?
It's only
For office buildings?
yeah, it's only applicable to office buildings. So
Oh,
buildings
so
with
if,
use.
so if office type.
Office type and building. There is an office type for land, actually.
So you broke up a little bit, if office type, sorry.
If it's a building and it's an office use type.
Oh, if so, okay. Gotcha. On the FRPP, got it, okay.
And then it's just a yes, no, and those will rarely change once Sydney puts the data down.
Okay.
The next four, you were saying at the very beginning, the annual cost of operations and maintenance costs for owned and leased. We currently have in the RPDW, there is I want to say it's an annual operating cost that is applied to owned assets, and there is currently an annual O&M cost applied to leased assets. Those are columns that are already in the RPDW.
Okay.
Obviously, DHS didn't think that was enough. If you go back to like earlier, that you had all those columns for like plumbing and lighting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
DHS has been trying for a long time to get everybody to give them all of these additional costs, and nobody wants to do it because it's a huge pain to roll it up at every asset.
Yep. So
they're trying again. That's what this is.
So what does that mean?
Well, it's a little simpler than breaking it down into.
Yeah, I think they're going to get away with this. But yeah, this is directly related to those other operating costs and O&M cost fields that are already in there at the FRPP level.
So should we just do a calculation to roll up? That's it on these?
That is, okay, that's a tough question, and here's why. They have put these out there, but we have not yet, Sydney has not yet determined how he wants to populate these. I do not know for certain that this will be, in fact, a roll-up from other fields, or those the O&M costs for leased will be a roll-up of these. I'm assuming the lease annual O&M cost will be a roll-up. The other one is not an O&M cost, it's just an operating cost. Should be right in here somewhere. Current maintenance indicator, annual operating cost, right there. So that is the annual operating cost field that's there now, and that's used for owned assets, but it does not include maintenance costs. Whereas the lease annual O&M costs, you are probably 100% correct, that will probably be a roll-up of those two fields. Which, if I'm not mistaken, in RPMS, we actually had it that way, where they had, for leases, they could enter an operating and a maintenance cost, and we rolled it up to that field. So this kind of matches what we did in RPMS for leases, but we never had it for owned because nobody cared. Now, apparently, DHS cares. So, again, I just think those are going to be 4 numeric fields put on the FRPP record. The lease the lease maintenance and lease operating costs will probably roll up to that O&M, unless Sydney determines he wants to capture it in some other way, and that's what I haven't been able to get out of him yet. For right now, I would say I would lean toward yes. It's probably going to roll those two up into that other one.
And right now, that's what I have here is just a direct roll up of, I mean, a copy of what's in there now.
Right now, we just copied the maintenance cost from the O&M field.
Okay.
And then these last 3 are going to be kind of complicated. Tell me when you're ready.
All right.
All right, so these last 3 are all related, and it's all about this Freedom of Information Act. There is a Freedom of Information Act thing that came out a year or 2 years ago that basically FRPP is going to start putting their information in a place where the public can get to it. Well, their information, when rolled up, is considered sensitive, sometimes classified. So they are giving us the opportunity to say, this should not be included in the public data set. Column DB, the title is real property because they don't want to make it obvious, even though they're sending all this information over public channels, unsecured channels. Real property says basically, yes or no, this asset should be removed from the public data set for national security reasons. So we have, FEMA has one that I am aware of, location that should not be in the public data set, and it is not even included in our reporting to RPDW for that reason. So I'm not sure we're going to have any of these with a Y on it.
What is the 10 that I see here though? There's obviously a code that we're
right. I'll get to that.
Okay.
I'll get to that. The columns are out of order as far as their importance. So I'm speaking to them in order of importance. Those 3 columns. So it's real property, yes, indicating if it should be removed from the data set.
Okay.
If it is removed from, if yes, it should be removed from the public data set. We put in the code of 10 for the FOI exemption, which basically says, don't worry about it. We're telling you to remove it.
Okay.
Which I think is backwards. I would think they'd want to know why. If we put N in real property, saying no, it does not need to be removed from the public data set for national security reasons, we then have to enter a code of 1 through 10. And if you scroll down, you can find what they mean.
This right here, right?
Yeah, but the actual codes themselves are down, 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 down. They're in the RPW. Sorry. They're in the RPW.
Not that one. Here. It'd be 30.
That's the FRPP.
And the,
oh, no, it isn't the FRPP. That's it. That's it right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So here are the actual codes. If you say no, it is not a national security thing, we have to then say, but we might exclude it for one of these other FOI exemptions, FOIA exemptions.
Okay.
So then we have to say, okay, this one is not a national security thing, so it's not, we're putting an N in the real property column. But it is a, you know, law enforcement location, so we don't really want to include it for FOI stuff there. So we're exempt there. And that is what that other column is. And 10 is no FOIA exemption. If we're saying yes, exclude it in the real property column, we can just put in 10 and not worry about these codes. All right, if we put in an N, we have to put in one of the codes. If we put in the code 3, statutory, meaning there is a different statute that we're not talking about yet here. If we put in statutory, go back to the Excel spreadsheet, we then have to tell them which statute in the statutory citation column. If you grab that and scroll down, statutory citation, you can drag that over and you can see it. And this is just statutory citation. If we put in the exemption of 3, they need to specify the statute, and they don't really give us any explanation of what they want that to look like yet. My assumption is going to be a varchar string character of who knows what length.
Okay, so we'll just do yeah, open text for now.
Yeah.
The good thing about open text is we can always turn it into a queryable field to a list. Okay.
My assumption is if you drag that back over one more time, sorry.
Yep.
My assumption is it's going to look kind of like the, if you look at our age of property, section 11A1, or, you know, further in where they've got the dollar sign thing, 524A11BI, it's probably going to look something like that, where they'll actually list the actual statute itself, possibly putting the name of the legislation if it came out of a specific legislation.
Okay.
So that's all the fields. Those last 3 are the ones, like I said, that are kind of complicated. And then the transaction stuff.
To me, the transaction stuff's going to be more complicated because we need answers from.
Right. And that's the real property stuff. That stuff is kind of complicated to, like, you have to be able to grasp what's going on. The transaction stuff is going to be complicated because it's probably going to require the most work on your end, regardless of whether Sydney adds more to this or not. We have to then reach out and say, what are our future transactions and what do we think they're going to be?
Right, right.
In the transaction stuff, so we can kind of review that real quick. So yeah, just look up transaction.
We didn't identify what form those last 3 should be on. What do you think on that one? FRPP?
Yeah, definitely the FRPP record, because it is very specific to this FRPP record that we push up to DHS and they push over to FRPP is or is not excluded from FRPP's public data set.
Okay.
So all that said and done, if you want to move on here, I'll go ahead and do a quick review of these transaction fields.
Okay. Yes, we're ready.
So transaction field, again, I think it's 8 columns. There's transaction 1 and transaction 2, and each has the same 8 fields.
Sorry.
So transaction, it's a fiscal year. What fiscal year do you expect this transaction to take place? If you know something is going to happen after the first 5 years, I think it is, you put in FY 9999, meaning somewhere in the future we are going to expire this lease or terminate this lease or renew this lease. But it's after the 5-year period. I believe it's a 5-year period they asked about. Fiscal year, data length.
You keep saying lease. So you keep saying lease on this. So I have to assume if this is a lease rec FRPP, then we'll expose this. But if it's not.
No, this is any asset. It generally only applies to leases because owned assets, there are rarely transactions with owned assets. if we are going to demolish or sell an owned asset, we would suddenly add transactions for it, but they don't expect us to have transactions for owned assets. And it is, you can see under transaction FY1, it is required for building assets. They're not saying it doesn't exist for others. It's required that we enter this for any building asset.
Okay. So this would be on the FRPP, my assumption would be.
Correct. It's an FRPP level set of fields. Again, keep in mind that while these fields are required, Sydney may be adding to this for his own personal needs.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so the first part is the format. It's a fiscal year, 4-digit, but in the actual FRP or the RPTW, it is FY and then the 4-digit. So it's a 6-digit date, depending on how you wanted to do that in Tririga.
Yeah.
But when it hits the RPTW, it has to have the FY in front of it. Please come with rows 1 and 2, and then scroll down to where there's data. Yeah. See data here at the same time. All right, so transaction 1, the next field is what is the actual transaction taking place? And it's an alpha code that is designated in this data dictionary. Enter the alpha code that designates by your planned transaction. So what is the transaction type field? It's a 2-digit or less alpha code. Scroll down a little bit and you'll see the actual codes. And you'll see the codes right now are A through S.
Okay.
So I guess they're planning on adding additional types because they said a 2-digit. But right now it is just those A through S codes. So we say, okay, it is this code, and we move on to the next one. And you can see on the left there, anything we have in fiscal year 4, we have a transaction code. And you can see most of them are going to be lease related. So you're going to see the B, C, D, E, F, and G a lot. What is Q? Consolidation. Okay, Q is consolidation. There's a lot of that going on too. Okay, and then transaction impact on square footage. We haven't really bothered with a lot, and here's why. If I am getting rid of a lease and expanding another lease with the same amount of square footage, there's no actual impact on square footage.
Right.
So it just needs to be a numeric field that we then determine whether or not we want to put something in there. I would not put a whole lot of limitation on it.
Okay.
Yeah, because they could be expanding the lease, they could be terminating the lease, they could be consolidating 2 leases into 1. We don't know what's happening there, so it's just got to be a manual entry for a numeric field,
Okay.
number of square foot. The next one, transaction impact on personnel. It's the same thing. It's a numeric field. Generally, I don't think we have anything in there. Yeah, so we have 1, and the number of personnel, if we're moving the people to another location, again, it's the same number of people in FEMA. It's not like we're getting rid of people. But if we're actually removing things, it depends on Sydney and how he wants to handle this. Right now, he's just saying, no, don't put anything in there.
Okay.
But again, numeric field, don't put a lot of limitation on them.
And obviously it's not a decimal number. It's just a number because people can't be a portion.
Correct. Well, I mean, you can, but it's kind of
Yeah.
and it might land you in jail. Okay. So the next field here is a justification. It's okay. You're doing this action listed in the transaction column. Why are you doing this action? Okay, so it's just an extension of that same thing. Whether it's a holdover tenancy is the first one that just caught my eye here looking at the list. But those are your codes, A through L. Once again, they're saying a 2-digit or less alpha code, so they're probably planning on adding additional codes.
Okay.
And then, okay. And then the next one is the transaction budget requested. If I'm remembering correctly, this was the, oh, okay, so this is the dollar amount. Okay, so basically they're saying if this transaction is going to cost you money in some way, shape, or form, how much money did you request? And, you know, each of these next fields is related. So the next one is budget received, budget obligated. It's all about this, tracking the dollars required to make this transaction take place. Generally speaking, FEMA has answered 0. You know, we're not spending money necessarily to get rid of this lease or renew this lease. GSA is doing it. We don't have a whole lot of budget in that. I think DHS is going to come down on us at some point because obviously if we're assigning personnel to handle these projects and these changes, they're considering that budget. So I think DHS is going to come down on FEMA about it, but right now FEMA's been entering 0 for anything that is required. Go over a couple of columns here. All right, so that last column, well, okay, sorry. There you go. Do me a favor, scroll down until we find one with a number in it. I'm pretty sure we had 1.
This is all transaction
square foot. Keep coming. Okay, there you go. So here you go. So one of our early submissions with this, I had nothing in those transaction budget columns. And DHS came back and said, no, you need to give us a transaction budget requested. And
Okay.
It's specifically for J. So if you can open the document and go to justification J, scroll up. Justification J was space no longer needed. Apparently that particular thing said, no, you must have, actually it might have been E and J. E was like early termination or something like that of a lease. Scroll up. Up, right there, E, lease termination. So yeah, if we're terminating the lease early, they had a flag that said, no, you must put in a number. Well, we put in 0 and they let it go.
Oh, okay.
So there are a couple of small rules. I'm sure I have not found all the rules DHS is implementing on this yet. And this is new enough that they really haven't started pushing on it. Jump back over time.
You know, Tririga pushes out, if it's a number field, it'll always have a 0 in it. So we just need to be careful that, you know, because it is a number field, do we want to report it as a number field? So, you know, this is one of the things that we dealt with in the past where the way it was formatted in Tririga, we had to create another field that actually just took it and made it text so it would either show or no show, that kind of thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have those rules at this point. The RPDW has not been, they don't have enough information there for me to know what is and isn't. I could probably have a candid conversation with Chuck Fowler over at DHS and just say, hey, look, here's where we're at. If I put 0s in all of these fields, because that's the way Tririga is going to kick it out, is that going to be a problem for you? My assumption is you say no, it's not a big deal, but we would not want to include the 0 if we're not putting any transaction there at all, I would think. Is that something that could be done if it was still a numeric?
I'm sorry, repeat that one more time.
Well, so like row 250 there's 0 transactions listed.
Yep.
Would that still have a 0 in that column?
It would. Yes.
Okay. So I would need to talk to Chuck and see if that's going to be a problem for them, because they may say, well, you have a 0 but no transaction, and that throws off a validation flag on their end. In which case we would probably want to adjust that to not display. So, I mean, I can do some digging with Chuck and figure out what's up with that.
Okay, sounds good.
Go down to transaction 2 comments, whatever. It's after all the transaction 2 stuff. That's the last one of the transactions. 5-year plan comments. Okay, so that's the last of them, of the 5-year plan fields. And so you see it's a column there. We have so far put nothing in it. Field is limited to, it says 1,000 characters. So that's the last one there. It's just a 1,000 character text field for them to enter comments if they want to.
Okay. Good enough. And well, you know our limitation. Yeah, 1,000 characters. Yep. Okay. Perfect.
What is the limitation?
1,000.
1,000. Oh, there you go.
Well, see, that's the problem, because I want 1,001.
Always difficult.
Always difficult. Okay, so that's all the fields that are new to the RPW since the original requirements. So that said, Sydney has put this deadline to have this done, implemented, and ready to go by the end of the calendar year. How are you feeling about that now?
I'm sorry. Say that one more time. I actually looked at something when you were saying that, and I shouldn't do that.
Sydney wants us to have all of this ready and done by the end of this calendar year. How are we feeling now that you've seen this?
I mean, you know, a lot of it is pending Sydney on if these are just, we're picking the value and entering them, hey, we can get that done very quickly. But if it's determined off stuff that he wants to enter somewhere else, that's definitely going to slow down the process.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of what I figured. So I think next steps, I should talk to Chuck about the zeros for the 5-year plan data and see if that's going to be a problem. And then we should probably have a conversation with Sydney, or schedule a conversation with Sydney to determine what else he is talking about when he says this 5-year plan stuff.
Right, because you know, fields are easy, list values, fields are easy, list values are easy. All that stuff's easy, but determining, like you said with Chuck, how he will accept it, that's another story. And determining where the roll-ups come from, if any, that's another discussion.
Right.
Okay.
Regarding the 5-year data, the 5-year plan data, depending on what Sydney comes back with, how difficult is it, or would it be, to add a whole new form that sits underneath the FRPP record?
Not very difficult.
Okay, because he may be adding a lot of other stuff there, depending on what.
I actually recommend that. I do actually recommend that if we're going to be pulling other things. So yeah, it's high probability that that's where we're headed.
I'm fine with that. If that makes it easier, I think it would make it easier when Sydney starts adding additional stuff to the 5-year.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes, you know, he doesn't want to go through all the other components just to see his 5-year stuff. So it'll make it easier for reporting and for visibility too.
Awesome. All right, so I will talk to Chuck about those columns, and then we should schedule a time to sit with Sydney and say, okay, what else are you talking about here? How are you feeling about other things that we have to get done?
I'm okay with it. I don't have an issue. But you know, we're gonna throw it all on Arthur anyway when he comes back. So.
Awesome, I'm sure I'll appreciate
That was gonna be my question, was this Arthur or Dave or
No,
combination?
we're going to get started on it. We'll go ahead and get started with the stuff, and we'll let Arthur know where we are, because this, honestly, we've kind of handed the reins over to Arthur on this project. We're always here to help. Not going to be our number one priority, but while he's out, it will be our number one priority. And hopefully we can get most of these fields in by the time he comes back. And then all he'll have to do is, kind of work the magic to have it export out the way it's needed.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to send you the latest FRPP data dictionary that has all these new fields.
Perfect.
As well as the addendum that describes that real property field.
Yep, that's exactly all the documents that you've displayed for us today. I would like a copy of all this.
Yep, we will do that. That'll happen shortly. Andy's writing himself a note right now,
Yeah,
I think.
I'll send them to you.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I'll talk to you and get back to you, and I guess let me know if you have additional questions.
I sure will.
Brent, do you want to take over scheduling to discuss this with Cindy?
Sure.
So as soon as I have an answer about those and Yvette is ready, we should talk to Cindy about what else he wants there.
Yeah. Yeah, he coincidentally said he was going to send us a copy of his 5-year real estate plan, but I haven't seen it.
I have not seen the one he has for this, but it's not what you think it is. It's a really big document that he puts together explaining everything he's doing at every one of these locations. I'm not sure it's as helpful as you think it'll be from our end, from our perspective. But for his management team, it's very helpful. Yeah,
I'm thinking of it not for IT really at all, but just for direction. What his big plans are.
I don't think I've got this year's plan. I'll look and see if I've got a copy of one of the previous years, just so we can have something to look at. My expectation is he'll be building the new 5-year plan in the next 2 months.
Okay.
That's usually he does it around December.
Okay.
All right, so unless there's anything else?
Nope, that's it. I think we're good. Good start.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
All right, bye.
All right, bye-bye.